Well, tubers, I got me another project here. I got a 310 SG Deere backhoe. If you ever get an opportunity to buy one of these, don't. So I got a really long introduction to this. This is the rear end to that backhoe out there. We're gonna rebuild it hopefully in this video. I got a long introduction. If you don't hear me rattling, you can skip forward to
8 minutes and 48 seconds,
and that will take you to the point that we actually start putting this rear end together. For those of you who want to laugh, you notice my shop has kind of picked up. I have been working on it. I get people comment all the time making fun of my shop, how much of a mess my machine shop is, and that's fine. Like, it is. I'm not an organized person. I wish I had a little bit of that OCD in me, but it's just not there. I am absolutely 100% a slob. I'm kind of a germaphobe. I'm not like, my sink's not full of dirty dishes type person, but my office looks like, a paper shredder exploded in it. Anyway, I got this comment the other day. This guy went on and on. It was like a whole essay long, and about what a slob I was and how you can't do this in a dirty shop. You can't do that. This is ridiculous. And the gist of his comment and his ending line was, and I quote, "If you don't clean up your workspace, your YouTube career is over." And I thought that was just about the funniest thing I'd ever heard, that my YouTube career is over. Like, I make a living on YouTube. I make a living in the oil field. This is just what I do. It's fun. Anyway, the only thing that's over is his privilege for commenting on my videos. So I got to give a backstory on this backhoe. My dad purchased this backhoe in about 2010. It's an 05 model, I believe. It didn't have many hours on it. I think it was like 15 or 1800 hours, something like that. Pretty low hours. And he bought it at an auction, gave a bunch of money for it. I think he gave 30-something grand for it. A backhoe is something we always are in need of. Cleaning up trees, burying flow lines, whatever. We use a backhoe a lot. And we needed one. So he bought this. It seemed to be in extremely good shape. Everything was tight. It was two-wheel drive, which makes it not worth as much money. And but that's not a issue to us. So we get this backhoe, and we've had it. It seems like just a few months. I don't remember exactly how long it was. And I don't remember exactly what happened, but it had something blew up in the wiring harness, and the wiring harness went up in smoke. We had to buy a wiring harness for it, and it was just absolutely stupidly expensive. I don't really remember exactly what the wiring harness cost, but it was $4,000 or $5,000 or something stupid like that. It was just a harness that went from the control panel down to the frame. It wasn't even the engine harness or whatnot. So anyway, it's set out on one of the leases with a kind of the floor took out and everything, disassembled for about a year. And Dad finally bought a harness for it. And we got it fixed. And then it was not long after that, it was a few months later, might have been a year. I was filling in this, it's kind of hard to explain, but there's this mud hole. And I was trying to put some dirt in it, smooth it up, fix it with a backhoe. And I was in this mud hole. And it's only two-wheel drive. It won't get any traction. You're just kind of sliding all over everywhere, trying to push dirt. And it started making this sound. It started going, when you would drive it forward, it would go click, 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 like a ratchet type sound. And it started, it acted like the differential lock was engaged. And the differential lock's electronic. And I thought that actually that's what the deal was. I thought that's what the sound was. And it's just an electric switch. I kept kicking the switch is on the floorboard, and then I put it in first gear and kind of got on one brake, give it some gas, got on the other brake, trying to think that it was just sort of in a bind. Anyway, it just popped, and then it was just permanently in neutral. And it wasn't like I was using it like a bulldozer. I mean, it wasn't in a bind. It was in a mud hole where it wouldn't get any traction. Anyway, long story short, this chunk right here, not the ring gear, but this, the actual differential housing here, it's got a set of spider gears in it. And one of those spider gears broke, and it wadded up in that housing and just destroyed the housing and all the gears and the two axle shafts, intermediate axle shaft. I guess just one intermediate axle shaft. And anyway, I loaded up, brought it home, took it apart, and this piece right here from John Deere was $5,400, not including this gear. This piece, this little piece right here, cost $5,400 from John Deere. I told Dad, and he was pissed off. He goes, I ain't fixing that piece of crap. I'm done with it. Just haul it to the scrapyard. I'm not going to spend another dollar on it. And that's kind of typical of my dad. But also, at that point, how can you really blame him? So anyway, this thing sat apart right outside the door for about 6 or 7 years. And I tried to kind of keep it covered, but it got mud in it. It rained in it. These housings were still together. I just split it right in the middle. There was just this piece out of that center chunk. This piece right here. I just split it right there. And finally, you know, I had bought a couple leases, and this was last year. And I decided, I thought, you know what? If Dad's not going to fix that backhoe, I'm going to fix it, and I'm going to use it. So I went to John Deere, and I bought this centerpiece here, and basically put it all back together. And I felt like when this thing blew up, that the only thing, you know, that all the metal shards, the pieces, it was pretty much all inside this housing here. You know, there's a little bit in this case here. It was pretty much all in there. I didn't, when it blew up, I didn't keep driving it like that. You know, it didn't go any farther. That was it. And anyway, I bought that piece and put this back together and got in the backhoe and cranked it up. You know, it was the first time it had ran in probably 8 years, something like that, 6 or 7 or 8 years. And all the hydraulic cylinders just hemorrhaged oil and everywhere, just because it'd been sitting. All the seals are gone. I mean, like, you couldn't even hardly pick the feet up. Anyway, I got it running. I put it in drive and it goes backwards. And you put it in reverse and it goes forwards. And I put this rear end together wrong, because apparently you can assemble this basically with this piece turned the other way and then rolled over. So anyway, I'm not going to make that mistake again. I'll make sure I get it right. But you can put it together backwards so that if they use the same rear end in like one of those front wheel drive all-terrain forklifts like mine, but a new John Deere one, and they use all the same rear end, it's just assembled differently. The planetaries go on the opposite side. And anyway, so I had thrown $5,000 away, and I didn't want to take it back apart. And it sit there another year, and I popped off the day to Dad. I said, I want to sell it back. I want it out of my yard. I'm going to buy it from you and fix it, or I'll haul it to the scrapyard. I'm done with it. I'm sick of mowing around it. It's just, you know, stupid. Well, anyway, he popped off. He goes, I want $10,000 for it. So anyway, I bought this backhoe from him. I'm $15,000 in it, including this gear, but you really can't count the first $5,000 because it was pretty much thrown away. And I'm going to fix it. It'll be a good machine. I had to buy some more parts to talk about. Anyway, a lot of these parts are kind of rusted. There's some of it's in good shape. Some of it has got some surface rust. And luckily, this thing was I put it together backwards, because looking at it, when I first took it apart, I really didn't think that it got any ground up metal sort of out in the outer edges of this, but there is a lot everywhere, and it needed to be completely disassembled and cleaned up. So that's the backstory. I now own a backhoe. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to use it for things I need to use it for, and if I get to where I don't use it, I'm going to sell it. Thinking I could probably still get 30 out of it, and I'm hoping I have 20 in it. Hopefully I come up better on this project than Dad did, but whatever. The first thing I'm going to put together is these two outer housings. They're the first part that's got to go together. This piece goes up inside there. There's a seal on here. These seals were expensive and they look fine. I'm going to reuse them. All the bearings and stuff look fine. It was full of metal, but like I said, I don't think it probably moved more than 100 feet after it chilled. But I want to show you kind of how this goes together. We've got a bearing. There's a race in here, sits on that bearing. That goes up inside there, and then we've got this bearing and nut that go on here, in here, and then the planetaries all get bolted together. So I want some feedback. For those of you that are going to watch this video, it's nearly 43 minutes long. If y'all like this kind of stuff, I know my channel does the best. I get the most views. YouTube seems to recommend my videos more often when they are directly related to an oil well. Working on wells, units, that kind of stuff out there in the field. But for those of you that are sort of in for the long haul here, watch all my stuff. Y'all like this kind of stuff? Y'all like working on equipment, long form videos?
You know, I do realize that most of y'all are here for the oil field stuff, but this is definitely a part of the business. It is definitely part of, you know, my life, of the Zach life, as this is titled. Let me know.
So next we've got to drop this planetary spider planet holder thing. I'm not sure what the word is. It's got a little bit of surface rust on it. I don't think that that's an issue. It is splined. Inside is splined to this axle. And it's got a little tang that sticks out of it, and this tang engages in one of these notches of this nut, so that once you put this in, this is what locks that nut in there.
There's a big washer. I would call this a shim. And then we've got a half-sprung snap ring here.
So I got the planets here. There's 3 planets cleaned up. So I wanted to show you this planetary setup here. This is the sun gear, and this engages with the 3 planets. And the 3 planets are what's actually connected to the axle shaft. So this part here is stationary, and when you turn this, it gives you a very low or numerically high gear ratio between the actual differential and the actual axle housing. So I'm gonna put the other one of these together. I gotta clean it all up. I'll catch you back in a minute. So we got to assemble this thing. This is a chunk that goes between the axle housing, whatever you call this piece, and the gear piece over there. I don't know what any of this names is. But this piece goes just like that. This one and that one are not the same. Those are 2 different pieces. They've got different size bearings. One side has got, this side here has got the differential lock piston in it, which is this piece right here. I haven't taken this out. I took these brake pistons out of here thinking that they might have gotten water in them, but they both look like they were probably fine. And I'm not going to pull this one out. I'm just going to leave it. But we got to reseal these. I think this is a common failure point. They've got a couple lip seals right there. We got to put those in. This piston goes in. We've got some clutch disc things that are actually brakes. The intermediate axle shaft. That piece right there, which is the differential lock. It's one of the old ones from the first blow up. I don't know if this will work, but it's not something that I really ever use. You can see it sort of wadded those ears up a little bit. But we got to put all this stuff in one of these. This has got a couple lip seals that go in here that this piston works against. Before I explain this, there's 2 different sizes of these little plastic deals. These go behind these in the groove. There's basically 2 of these, 2 of these, 2 of these, and 2 of these. Now I've reused these plastic deals. I didn't buy them. And 4 O-rings. What do y'all think that these 4, 8, 12 pieces cost? Y'all guess in the comments, and I'll tell you in just a minute. It's just mind-blowing.
There is some mild surface rust in here, but I really think that it's fine. I got it all cleaned out. I'm gonna get this in and not break it. There's a groove cut in this O-ring, and the groove goes towards the pressure. On this one, this plastic thing goes on top, and the groove goes down.
So there's a hole drilled here. There's two of them. There's a bleed screw and a supply port. And the pressure here, the pushing on this piston is between these two pistons. It's between this slip seal and this lip seal. So this lip seal is looking down and this one is looking back up. The pressure is right here. Anyway, this will make more sense in a minute, but this pushes out against some clutch discs and an axle, and this is the actual brakes. I think this is a common failure point in these rear ends. This actually uses the transmission fluid. It's not the hydraulic fluid. It's the ATF out of the transmission is what pressurizes this, and if this seal leaks, it pumps all the transmission fluid into the rear end, and then this rear end's full of ATF and not gear grease. I think it's sleet holding. Alright. Okay, so here are the brakes. We've got these steel discs that go in here. A brake. This has kind of got some surface rust on it, but I still think it's probably fine. And this turns, yeah, lines up in there. But this little machine ridge here sits right inside this little machine ridge here, and that centers this piece up. And then the sun gear here that goes in like this. This spline here splines to these brake drums. It goes like that. I'm not exactly sure how to go about doing this. This piece fits right in there like I was saying. These notches go on top or bottom. I guess they're probably for oil flow. Give my tripod here. So I got the O-rings put in. There's this big O-ring, and then there's two here. These are drain ports for oil. I got this piece dropped in there. I've been trying to decide how to get this on there and keep everything lined up, and I got an idea, but I'm not sure if it's going to work. This piece goes like this. This notches go on top and bottom, and this lines up these little cutouts here, line up on the edges of these teeth. So what I'm thinking, these splines lined up. So I'm going to try to carry this over there and set it, get my orientation correct here, and set it on top of here by hand. It's like pretty heavy. Basically like that. Ah! Dang it. Brand new O-ring kit. Alright, that took a little bit of monkeying with. I think I didn't have the big cast iron first brake shoe piece wasn't lined up, and I couldn't get it to go all the way down on there. But there's a little window over here, or a drain plug I should say, and I was able to get in there with a screwdriver and manipulate it. I got it on there. So I've had this thing, I've been scratching my head longer than I'm willing to admit here.
I got to make sure I put this together right, because this is what I got wrong. It goes just like that, and the drive shaft goes out this way. This is the top. This is the top, and this is the this planetary here. It's got to be on the driver's side, if you will. It doesn't have driver's side or whatever. And the drive shaft's got to go that way. It'll be just like this. What I had done is, if you flip this over and turn it around, it'll go on this direction. And this would be like for a forklift. Apparently they use the same rear end. Still the top, but the drive shaft comes out that way. So I wanted to show you this. I thought it was kind of interesting. I told you when I tore this down, there really wasn't all that much shrapnel in this part of the housing. And I assumed the way this is made, there's not really a way for much to get into the actual axle housing. I assumed there probably wasn't much in here. I figured it's pretty clean. In hindsight, after I tore this apart, it was mostly in this axle housing. And I figured out what the deal here is. It's got these cavities, or whatever you call it, up here. The ring gear throws oil either up here or this way, depending on if you're going forward or backwards. And it's connected to this hole. And this hole runs through the planetary setup and into the actual axle housing here. It actually dumps this oil through this hole back behind here, behind this plate. And I know what this made to do. It's made, if this thing gets low on oil, it puts every last drop it can get and puts it back there on the bearings and on the planetaries here. But anyway, that's why it must have picked up all this crap and ground up metal that was in here and pushed it through these holes and actually put all the shrapnel, as I say, into the axle housing. So it's dark. Day is over. Catch y'all tomorrow. These gears have got a little bit of marking on them, but they still got a pretty shiny gear tooth pattern. A little bit of surface rust, but I don't think it'll be a problem. So I'll talk more about it in a minute, but the gears in this thing are not a hypoid gear. They're not like the gear in your car, ring and pinion. These are a spiral bevel cut gear. And what that means is that the pinion comes out from the ring gear on the same plane. They're at a 90-degree angle. A hypoid gear is either above or below it. And this is the reason this rear end is able to be flipped over, is you can just simply put the ring gear in this way or underneath it. It doesn't matter. It'll run on either side of the ring gear. You can't do that with a normal ring and pinion. Alright, next I got to put this emergency brake thing back together. So this is the front housing of the differential where the yoke is, and this has got a piston in it that works the emergency brake, the parking brake, whatever you call it. This is a lot like the ones that were on the brakes. Anyway, this piston just goes in here like that. And this piece is what sets against all of the, I've got this wiped off pretty good. It's just sort of stained. This is what sets against the springs. We're going to put it on there first, but I just wanted to show you. Basically, this sits like this, and the springs push on this and set these brakes. And then the yoke splines in here from the other side. It goes the other way. This thing has got an O-ring on it like everything else, but I didn't get a new one. It's smaller. I'm going to take just a very little bit of 3-bond here and put a little bit around this face in case the O-ring leaks. This should help seal it.
this will seal it. My hand in here where I can hold this front clutch plate in. Okay, so this thing has got a couple of bolts here, and these bolts stay in with a jam nut out. What these bolts do is go in and push on that piston. And so if you run these bolts in and bottom them out, it collapses the springs and releases these clutches. And we got to do that so we can get these clutches lined up, and I want to be able to rotate this, you know, that having hydraulic pressure hooked up to it as we assemble it. Yep, now the clutches are free. Alright, so here's what we're looking at. And these clutch plates in here now are loose. And so we just got to take this yoke and line it up and get the splines lined up with everything in there. There wasn't nothing to that. So I wanted to show you this diff lock. It's got a needle bearing that goes right here. This whole piece goes upside down over this axle shaft and pushes against this piece. And this piece right here, inside here, is a piston. And when you supply pressure to this port, that piston pops up. And anyway, when it pops up, it collapses this spring. And these little dog teeth spline into this gear right here. This is one of the spider gears. And so if you lock the spider gears to this housing, you are going to effectively lock both axles together. They won't be able to differential. That's what I figured. There it went. Watch your fingers. So I made a mistake on the other side. This last steel plate that I put in the brake disc pack here, I forgot to put that in the other side. I didn't realize it was supposed to be there. And I had an extra one left over, and I took it apart and put it back in there after the fact. But just to set the record straight, it's supposed to have a steel plate between this big cast iron piece and the last brake disc. You know, on the other one I thought this was rusted, but I actually think that that's just a rough casting that's painted. It is painted. I think the spline that splines into the spider gear on this is a little bit rough. This is the one that went through the original blow up.
All right, so I laid this down with a chain hoist. I have lost this plug. I need to find that before I drag it up and get it full of dirt. By the way, I got me another little project here. 7.3 Super Stroker. It's pretty slick old pickup. So I run out of camera the other day. This is like probably 2 or 3 weeks later. It's been a while ago. I got all the bolts put in the rear end. I got the rear end bolted up after the camera died. It was about to start raining and I wanted to get everything done under it that I could because I expected it to be wet. I didn't want to crawl around here in the water. I got the rear end bolted in it. The drive shaft put in it. It was pretty simple. It's just 4 bolts, and then there is there's 2 or 3 hydraulic hoses that go. I guess there's 3 that go for the brakes and the differential lock. I've lost a bolt. We can find one and put it in later. I put it where you could get to it. It's not up to the top, but I somehow lost a bolt. This old machine's pretty rough. Anyway, I got gear oil and put in the rear end. It actually called for this J20C oil in the shuttle, the transmission, the rear axle, and the hydraulic fluid. You know, they're not commingled fluids, but it uses the same fluid in all of them. And to be quite frank, that's a low viscosity hydraulic fluid. It's real thin, like 5-weight oil or something. I just don't think that that's a good idea to put in this rear end. And so I put 90-weight in it. But I got a battery. Let's put a battery in it. I'm going to put a bunch of hydraulic fluid in it and see if we can get it to start and put the tires on it. Let's go ahead and get up here and see if it'll run. Looks like it was started yesterday. Okay, so I have jacked with it a few minutes here. I put 2 buckets of hydraulic oil in it, and it's just up on the sight glass here. I got the brakes. They sort of work. They go almost all the way to the floor, but I think it's just got air. It may work itself out or something. But they work. The hydraulics should work. The next thing I'm going to do is put the tires on it. I pushed this up underneath here with my mower, and I think probably the only way I'm going to get it back out is with my mower. It's kind of stuck up under the tire. Alright, see if the Kubota will start here, and I'll use it to drag it out. We'll probably have to glow plug it. It's like 80 degrees. You gotta glow plug this thing every time it's cold. Or every time the engine is cold, I should say. Come on, buddy. Okay, so I got 2 bolts holes here with dirt in them. I got to get a tap to clean the dirt out of those. It's not a big deal. I'm going to put the other tire on, get some air over here, and I guess this thing will be ready to move. Well, it's sitting on the rubber. Hydraulic oil filter. Converter's hot. I have a feeling that neither of those are correct. I don't know how to find out though. Something's not right here. It went dead. Project for another day. This hydraulics work. Golly, that silver's leaking. Up. This cylinder right here is leaking really bad. See it? It moves. Yeah, the brakes work good now. Maybe they just needed to, I don't know. That front tire up there, I ruined that wheel when I was loading it, when it was blown up on the trailer. And I'm gonna have to get a new wheel. I don't think I might could bash it back together. But it really needs both new front tires. I'm gonna try to run the back tires. make me a parking spot. So this machine eats a lot of stuff. It needs a bunch of work. This project isn't close to being done, but it moves, and this was a big step. This thing hasn't really driven under its own power. It hadn't done donuts, I should say, in a long time, many years. Show you my other project. It has progressed. I bought this old Ford. I kind of like it. I had a guy come out and put a windshield in it for me today. I had to put a fuel pump on it, and it's got an oil leak. Fixing to pull the oil cooler off of it. I know this has been a long form video. I hope you enjoyed watching it. That was quite a project, and it needs a lot more work, as I said. But another day in the Zach life, I guess. Appreciate you watching. Like, share, subscribe, and all the good things, and we'll catch you on the next one.